rise up quickly, and his chains fell off from his hand. A light shined, lampo. So what did we discover? We discovered that whatever shined did not get the light to do it. The light came with the shine. So when he says God commanded the light to shine, who is the light? God himself. He doesn't look for light. God doesn't get light. God is light. 1 John 1:5. This then is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. You know, if God was creating light, he could have created something else. So he doesn't create light. He himself in God. When God commanded the light to shine, who was doing the shining? Himself. That's why the light of Genesis 1 is not the light of the sun. So that's why from the first day, Moses began to pen down the character of God. The first thing he said about God is that God separated the light from the darkness. God separated the light from the darkness. So you can't blame Moses for any confusion you may have. Moses wrote it down clearly that God separated light from darkness. That is, God has never featured in darkness. He has never operated in darkness. God is absolute light. And those of you who know the theory of absolutes, when there is absolute light of the world, God is light. He does not have light. He was not given light. He is light himself. That is the character and the nature of God. No darkness in God. That is not something he does. He is light. Light of Jesus Christ. You can only know God in the face of Jesus. No other face represents God like Jesus. Not Moses, not Elijah, not Jeremiah. You can only know God in the face of Jesus Christ. In the face of Jesus Christ. Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 7. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. So what was Paul talking about? He was talking about the gospel as the treasure. So the gospel not only comes to save, it also gives you an opportunity to come to the knowledge of who God is. So in the resurrection of Jesus comes not only the act, but the revelation of the actor, to see who God really is. The problem is, many believers, what they know about God is a rumor. They don't really know God. It is what they were told, what their mothers told them, their fathers told them, the testimonies people told them, dreams, visions, experiences. They don't really know who God is. They are like Job. In Job 42 verse 5, who said, all I know of God was a rumor. So whenever things go wrong, they say God is trying to teach me a lesson. When they are sick, they say God is trying to teach me humility. They think like that because they are double-minded. Some people say God can do whatever he wants. Well, if God operates like that, he will never ask you to believe him. He will just force things on you. Believing means he is definite. If God just functions anyhow, he will just wake up and change his mind anytime, and you cannot question him. Sometimes he says yes, sometimes he says no, sometimes he says it. Yeah, wait. How can you trust a God that is just unreliable? He's not definite, he's not specific. Ladies and gentlemen, there are things that God does not have the capacity to do. He cannot do it. That is, it is not within the confines of his power. He cannot do it. That's why Paul calls it weakness. I say, but you don't know Jehovah. He is Jehovah because he will save. The word Jehovah means savior. Look at 1 Corinthians 1:18. You will love this. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of God. Give me verse 19 to 21. Pay attention. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Had not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? Next verse. For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. You must understand, as a figure of speech, the foolishness and weakness of God. The foolishness and weakness of God. What is foolishness in the natural? What is foolishness in the natural? Is what preaching is. Preaching is foolishness to the unbeliever. So foolishness in the natural is the power of God. Foolishness in the natural is the power of God. Look at 1 Corinthians 1:22. For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. 23. But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, unto the Greeks foolishness. 24. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. What men call weakness, that Jesus died, is God's power. What they call foolishness is God's wisdom. So never use man's definition of power for God's power. You know, in the natural, power is for us to do and undo, deal with people. Somebody doesn't like you, you paralyze him, remove his eye, make the ground open and swallow him, make him just fall from the mountain. But if you see people who don't like you, then you take yourself and put in their hand. Natural men call it foolishness. But God's power is displayed in the death and resurrection of Christ. God's power is displayed in weakness and foolishness. That is why even the disciples said, we thought he was the one that would redeem Israel. They call foolishness the death of Christ. But that is the power of God. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 4. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. That is what Christ has done for all of us. In the preaching of the gospel today, the power of God. 1 Corinthians 1:18. Pay attention as a roundup. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of God. The preaching of the cross is God's power. So the power of God is unto salvation. Romans 1:16. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. The gospel of Christ is the power of God unto salvation.